I did a video a few weeks ago called 30% of educated black men are marrying interracial. That was based off an article Obsidian referred to me that was done in 2017. I will link that article at the first comment for your leisure and enjoyment. But I think that something was missed in this particular article that I would like to bring to the realization right now. When we talk about black, what do we really mean? Are we talking about African American black? Because for sure, we are the majority of the population. But have we not forgotten the emerging population of blacks coming from Africa and Caribbean are also counted in our population? They can either help it or hurt it, right? I'm talking about as far as achievements. And typically what we fail to realize is as black men, African American men, brothers from Africa and the Caribbean are also counted in our population as African Americans. And this is going to be important because I want to theorize something, what we're talking about as far as interracial dating. We think that 30% is African American men, but I want to think that actual number is less. Black men have more pressures to date within the race. Now, we do it, but I don't believe that it's at 30%. And many of us do go to college, but the percentage of black men who do go to college, I would think, is much higher within African and Caribbean ranks. And listen to what I mean. For example, when you look at Harvard, higher prestigious institutions, who are the students in the black population these days? It is not dominated by African Americans. Instead, you are seeing people coming from Africa, Nigerian Americans. Nigerian American students are dominating medical schools for black slots. People from Ghana, people from the Caribbean. In other words, the most highest performing blacks on average are not African American. They may look like us and sound like us. Genetically, they are us, but culturally different. But they are not African American. Now, what does this mean? This means that the African brother who goes to college is more likely to interracially mix. But why? Let's take the African American brother who goes to college. He goes to college, he meets a white girl. He's from an African American family. If he brings a white girl home, there's a problem. Mom is not going to be for it. The white family is not going to be for it for the most part. He grows up as a Negro. He grows up with the black experience, right? He understands the history of our people in our nation. The African brother, depending on where you live, he might be from Nigeria. He might be from Ghana. He might be from Togo. If he's from the Caribbean, he may be from Haiti. He may or may not have a community that he grows up along with other Africans, okay? Black people, even in the whitest areas, we have black American communities, even in Des Moines, Iowa, and Salt Lake City. This is not the case for African people, for the most part. When they come here, they may be the only family on the block, or they may have to hook up with African Americans. But typically, we know that a lot of African brothers and Caribbean brothers typically don't mesh with African Americans. In some cities they may, but typically they don't, okay? Especially when they're growing up. So this leaves the African or the Caribbean brother void of the African American experience. He has no ties to our community. They have no ties. We have no tie to their community. So you can't really beat him with that stick like your mama's black, okay? You can't say that to him. You can't talk about the black men ain't shit with him because for him, he don't experience none of that. Okay, and furthermore, his family, which is together, brings him up typically with more academic, rigorous prospects. So he's not dealing with a lot of the dysfunction that a lot of African Americans deal with. which means that his family, which probably works hard because Africans are the most highest earning one of minorities, especially the Nigerians in America, he lives in areas that are probably not black dominated. He might start off living in the hood, but parents work hard and they live somewhere else in a more integrated or more white society. So he's going to school with white people. He's going to school with more people who are not black. Again, removing him from the African experience. Now, Nigerian brothers, African brothers all around the continent, and Caribbean brothers, in their communities, they may have other Africans. But just because they're both from Nigeria don't mean that tribally the parents want them to marry. Think about this. If you are a young Nigerian brother, Ivory Coast brother, Ghana, and other African families may be there, they may be from Uganda or Kenya, that doesn't mean you intermix with them. It just means that there are other African families, but you don't necessarily interact. So if there's a woman that he might talk to, if she's from Africa, if they're from different tribes in the same country, like if he's a brother, he's an Igbo brother, and he goes to school with a Yoruba young lady, that doesn't mean that they're going to get married. They're not the same people. They're from the same country, not the same people. And his family may tell him, don't you marry an Igbo girl. Don't you marry a Yoruba girl. Similarly, we also know that African brothers, a lot of times their families tell them, you damn sure better not marry an African American woman. So this leaves him with not much options sometimes, from what I understand, within even African circles. Like a lot of guys that come here from Haiti, they might try to talk to the Haitian girls, but the Haitian girls become Americanized real quick. They end up liking what African American women like. They're going for the same type of guys that the African American women like. Same thing with the Nigerian women, the Liberian women, and the Ghanaian women. Now, their women are dating who their parents tell them not to date, right? And if you're a guy from Africa or Nigeria, a lot of times it's harder to date women in African American cultures. But if you are a black guy and you're smart and you're intelligent and you go to white schools, his family, for the most part, will have no problem dating white women. Now, we all understand this. In our culture as African-American men, to date a white person or to marry a white person, if you are successful, it is heavily looked down upon. I mean, we all know that. You dare you marry interracially, it's pretty much over in the black community. Everybody knows this, right? If you're a black man and you have a wife that's not black, you're pretty much done. Stick a fork in it. Africans' traditions, though, are not like that, okay? Marrying a white woman may actually elevate you. Marrying an Asian woman in the tribe elevates you. It's acceptable in your country. You can still be proudly a Yoruba man with a white wife, and she can dress traditionally. You don't lose part of your culture there, okay? And this is what we're talking about. So to marry interracially for brothers from Africa, they can go back home and get praise for that. So they get rewarded. Whereas if we do it, it's the opposite. Now, let's talk about these brothers who are going to college. All right? A lot of African brothers are going to school, going to colleges, and a lot of them are majoring in some pretty high-power stuff. You will not find them majoring in communications. Brothers coming from the Caribbean, Africa, at least in my anecdotal situation, right, that I've known. Most brothers from Africa are coming in majoring in things that are the heavy hitters. Mathematics oriented, engineering, pre-med, pre-pharmacy. These are the things that brothers are majoring in. So these careers, fortunately, pay good money. And they take you to schools that are not black, predominantly white institutions. So then also you look at the fact that when you go to a Texas Tech, you might go to a Texas A&M, you might go to a Georgetown, you're also not going to see many sisters there. And probably you've been turned down by sisters any goddamn way, right? So you're not even looking to do that. And this is a situation. So that's why a lot of African brothers, if you really see them, because of the problems they have with their own westernized women coming up, and the tribalism differences, and the lack of women that they can meet from their country in certain cities. Because if you live in Seattle, it might be hard for you to meet an African chick from, Nigeria or from Ethiopia or whatever the case may be. It's much easier to get in line with a white woman or an Asian woman, right? And a lot of people are not talking about this educated class of African men and Caribbean men who are dating out. And a lot of times, I'm going to add this there. When black men that are African and Caribbean are dating out, a lot of black women will turn around and blame us for their dating out. Oh, you see, you black men are sellouts. They'll do stories and stuff on YouTube all the time. But these brothers are not African American. These are Nigerian brothers doing that. Are there Jamaican brothers doing that? Are there sometimes, Jamaican and African, there's a mixture or whatever, and we get blamed for it. But in reality, these guys have no real tie to African American culture or communities. They never did. They don't owe us anything, in their opinion. And this is why I think a lot of brothers from the Caribbean who are trying to get away from some of the aspects of their culture, trying to get away from some of the things they have with their own women, they're going out and dating outside. And these brothers who are not African American have been doing this for quite some time. And that is the biggest group of black interracial daters, I feel, on both sides, both black women and black men. The people who tend to do it the most are African and Caribbean men and women. So guys, what do you think? Let me know what you think, guys. Subscribe, hit the bell. These are some of my reasonings why I think it's on the rise. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon. All my contact information is in the beginning of the first comment. And as you know, the buffoonery remains at an all-time high. I'm out.